Hello everyone, hope everybody's having a great day. I'm sorry for the lack of videos lately, but it's been real busy here in the radio shop and at work. So been working a lot of weekends. Not much time to get in here and do videos here lately, but hopefully we'll get back on track here soon. A lot of stuff in here for repair, a lot of stuff here to finish up and get out. But you know how it goes. Everyday life can get very, very busy sometimes. So anyway, y'all remember the Yaesu FT101ZD that we fixed a problem with the VFO not long ago. Customer loves it. He enjoys talking on it. Says it's one of the best sounding radios he owns, and he's just having a blast with it. But it come up and he said that the display has drifted off frequency and it's not lining up to the exact frequency that he's on when he's talking to people. So it's, you know, basically the display is off. So I thought we'd take a look at this and see if we can find out what happened, what's going on, and how we're going to fix it. Alright, so we got the radio turned on. I let it warm up for a little while because I didn't want to do any of this checking with a cold radio. I want everything to warm up and stabilize like it should be. You can see right here that our display is set to 14.200, but we can also see our analog dial. You can see it a little better now. So you can see our analog dial is off by a bit, probably about 5 or so. So I got the IFR on and have it set to 14.200 also, and we're in single sideband mode. And what we're going to do is key the transmitter and see what our error meter on our IFR shows us. Okay, I had to get the camera moved to get some of the glare off of it, but we can see our error meter just sitting there wiggling around and receive. So we'll put the radio in tune, and we'll go to Marks. That should key the radio up, and we'll look at the error meter. And as you can see, we are about 3 kcs off from what the display says. So yeah, looks like we do have a problem. Okay, so what we're going to do with the radio on 14.200 and the IFR is set to 14.200, we're going to key the transmitter and see if we can't rotate the VFO until we're center frequency on our error meter. So we'll key the transmitter now, and we'll rotate the VFO up to center frequency. And we should be able to look and see where we are on the display. And we can see our display is exactly 1 kc off. So this isn't too much of a problem, but the reason it's strange is that I know this was set dead on when the radio left. So something, I don't know if the 655 kilohertz crystal is drifting off, or we have something else going on in the display unit. So looking here on our schematic, we can see the 655 kilohertz crystal, and coming right off of that is a little trimmer capacitor. Now the rotor should be grounded on this capacitor, so it shouldn't matter if you use a plastic tip or metal tip tuning device if the trimmer is put in correctly. So all thing we're going to do is just take take this trimmer capacitor and zero the display. So we can get that to read 200.0. So right here on the top of the display, you should be able to access this trimmer capacitor right here. It is TC01. So we should be able to go in there and adjust this and get this back on 0. Okay, we can see our display. Go in here and try to give this trimmer a little turn. It does not seem to be doing anything. Alright, the interesting thing is that when I'm trying to tune this, I'm not seeing nothing happening on the display. It's like the capacitor doesn't do anything. But I did notice that the capacitor was turning, but it wasn't the rotor that was turning. The whole trimmer capacitor was actually turning. So something really going on down there. So we're going to have to go ahead and remove the 5 screws out of the top of this cover and take this cover off and take a look at the board. Okay, we have the screws out, and I said there was 5 screws, but there's only 4 that you need to remove. The front 2 and the 2 back here on the rear. Do not move this screw, because under this screw is a voltage regulator. So all we do is lift it up, pull the wires up, slide it forward, because you got 2 pins that go into this. And now you can turn the board over, and we can just unplug this regulator here. Now we can set our board aside. Got the radio up on its side so we can get a better view of what's going on here. And you can see here right in the middle, this section right here is our display board. You can see our 655 kilohertz crystal here, and there's the trimmer capacitor. You also notice a couple of rows of dip switches over here, and so that's, you know, these display can be programmed for the radio that is going in. They did use the same display board in the various 101 ZDs, the MK0, the MK1, 2, and 3. But they all use the same display, and you have to program them. If you ever had to change one of these out with another one, you'll have to program it just like the other one was. So if it came out of this is a MK0, so if you're replacing it with one that come out of it MK3, you will need to reprogram these switches. That way the digits will line up like they're supposed to. You can see the trimmer cap here is sitting at an angle, and just by touching it I can tell that it's loose. So what it looks like is that this terminal on this side has came loose from the board. Now I don't know what's going on yet because I can't see underneath of it, but I do notice there's a little bit of green corrosion on top of the crystal. Now I think you can see it also. So it may be that some corrosion has got in there, and it may have eaten the legs off of this trimmer. So what I'm going to have to do is go ahead and remove the complete board and get the board out of this metal case so I can take a good peek at it, then we can see about repairing it. Alright, we have the display board out, and to remove the display board all you do is remove the one screw out of this bracket. You have to disconnect this RCA cable and this Molex plug. Then you can slide the unit out. I've already removed the shield off the bottom of the unit, and you can see that this is two circuit boards. You have your board here on the top and a board on the bottom. So I started looking at this thing real good, and let me see how much I can zoom in here with the camera. I think you'll be able to see right there, but you can see the trimmer moving. Now, what looks like to me, somebody's replaced this trimmer in the past. Since this board is, or two boards, and the you can see the bottom board is soldered in. And then back here in the back, there's a header that plugs into the top board. Instead of them removing all that and putting the trimmer in like it's supposed to be, look, they dropped two wires in, then soldered the trimmer to those wires, and it looks like they have just failed. And it could be from vibration or, you know, bad solder joints. So what we need to do is go in here and desolder the bottom of this board, and go ahead and take our logic board out, so we can get to the bottom of this circuit board and put this trimmer back in the way it's supposed to be. So a little bit of a work there, but you know, sometimes that's what we run into. Now I'm going to say too, also, while you're in here, now a good time to go ahead and inspect all the solder joints around here on your pin, your headers, and up on your display board. Now your display board is just put up against this board and soldered on the top and bottom of the unit. So it's a good time now to go ahead and look at those to make sure there's no cracks or breaks in those. You know, especially since you're going this far, you might as well go ahead and give it a good look over just to make sure. So here on the back side of the circuit board, directly under the trimmer capacitor, we see we have a ceramic disc capacitor, and it's in parallel with that trimmer capacitor. And what this does is sets the range on the trimmer capacitor. I think this trimmer capacitor is like 0 to 40 picofarad. You can also see we have a ceramic capacitor here that's in series with the crystal. Now if you get these crystals start going off tolerance, a lot of times what you can do is change this capacitor on the back of the board if it's gone up in frequency, or you can also come in and put an inductor in series with the crystal lead to help bring the crystal back into resonance where it needs to be. Hopefully this won't be the case, because getting crystals now is getting harder to do, and they are getting more expensive than they used to be. That was one of the problems with ICM went out of business, and that's who I usually get all my crystals for, or from, you know, and they were great for amateur radios because they knew how to build a crystal. I have dealt with Jan several times, but their crystals, I have found a lot of times I have to make multiple orders to get the correct cut on the crystal. So hopefully we don't have to replace, you know, this crystal. Maybe we can, by fixing this trimmer capacitor, we can get it to stabilize and where it needs to be. So what I'm going to have to do is go ahead and desolder this capacitor and get it out of the way. Then I can remove those leads that are going through the board and get that trimmer out. So just so you know, as you can see, this is a double-sided circuit board. So when you're desoldering stuff on a double-sided circuit board, make sure you're using the correct heat, and it's always best to use a desoldering tool. It's real easy to lift these traces up if you're not careful at what you're doing. Okay, I have the trimmer removed. You can see the holes down in there where it was sitting. Right there. And when I sucked the solder out of them, it sucked those pins right up out of the holes also. So now I just got to clean this up. Make sure the holes are cleaned up. And there's the trimmer that come out, and you can see it still has its original legs on it. So the problem was that the solder connection, if we look at this side, you can see there was no solder at all. There we go. You can see under the microscope, you can see this pin over here had solder on it, and you can see the onlyest little bit of solder was right here on the very tip of that leg. How it worked to begin with is amazing, and the other side of this pin is just as clean as this side. So it won't, you know, just long before this was going to give up anyway. So and that's, you know, exactly what happened. Now some might say, well, buddy, you worked on this radio not long ago, why didn't you catch this? Well, it wasn't a problem. The radio was in for a specific repair, and that's what we repaired. Then later this problem come up, and you know, we weren't doing a full restore on the radio. We're just getting the radio back up and running. And I do have people that contact me quite often asking me to do a restore on the radio. Well, if you got a vintage Model T car and you carry it somewhere and you want it restored, you know what's involved in that. A lot of time taking it apart, stripping it down, painting and putting it back together. You know, the same thing goes with a ham radio. I get people call me all the time wanting me to restore a ham radio for them. Most of the time I tell them no. You know, basically because of the time and amount of work that goes into restoring a radio. Restores are mostly made for someone that's into radio and do it themselves. As far as paying somebody to restore a radio, the price is just way too far out of a ballpark to even consider doing that. And that's why I do not restore radios for folks. It's just too much time to be put into it, and you know, my time is limited, so it's hard to get in there. But anyway, I'm going to have to clean this up, check it out, and get it reinstalled back into the board. Alright, so now all we got to do is reinstall the trimmer and get it soldered back in place. Fits nicely down in the holes. I did have to modify the legs just a bit. I just took a Dremel cutoff wheel and hit both sides of them just to shrink them down in size a bit, so that the capacitor will sit down in the holes like it's supposed to be. We'll go ahead and get this soldered in place and put our ceramic disc back on the back of it. Counter units now back installed into the rig. Got it again set to 14.200. We'll key up the radio and see where we're at. That's a lot closer than it was before. Now that we got a working trimmer capacitor on that crystal, as center frequency, and you can see we're at 14.1997, very, very close to where it needs to be. So at this point we should be able to tweak the display right back where it needs to be. $14.200. Back over to the IFR. Dead on center frequency. Now, without even touching the analog dial, we can see that it is directly on 0. So that's all it was, just a improperly installed trimmer capacitor on the crystal. It's like somebody was, you know, a little scared to remove that board, so the leads that was on the board actually looked like the original trimmer leads. They just cut off the old trimmer and soldered the new trimmers to those terminals. And on that back side it was just looks like they couldn't get no solder to it, and just did make a connection. Which, you know, moving the radio around and vibration, you know, probably was the culprit. That broke the solder loose, what little bit of solder was there. So anyway, she's back up and going. So guys, with that, as you can see, sometimes there's just simple little things that have to be done from time to time. Like I say, I did not catch this in the first repair, and after the owner got it home, he noticed a few days later this problem started coming up, and now we know what it was. So there's something to look for if you ever tear one of these down, and see if somebody's changed that trimmer out to a different style that didn't quite fit the circuit board. Anyway, she's back up and going and ready to go, so I know the owner will be happy once again. So lots going on here. We'll be going over a lot of repairs here. Some of them I won't be able to get all of them on video, but you know, I'll do my best. We got a Tektronix oscilloscope to go through. We'll probably do a video on that. Also a couple of tube testers to restore, and this one actually belongs to someone. Now my own projects I'm having to put off right now because, like I say, I have got so much work. But this tube type tube tester here is the Hickok, and it's the 800A. And there's a long story behind this one. It is mine, but I need this unit up and going. I actually used to own this unit when I ran a TV radio shop in the late 70s, early 80s. And I closed the shop down because I mainly worked on vintage tube TV and radio. And so much transistor stuff was coming out, I just closed the shop down, sold out all the equipment. But I was able to recently get the Hickok back, so we'll be going through that and doing a restore here before long. Like I say, I need this tester because it is a mutual inductance tester, and the other two testers I got are just you know, the old standard emission type testers that doesn't really do the correct needs we need for some of these tubes for testing. So that's where we are on that right now. A lot of stuff coming. Checked my emails the other day. I had over 3,000 emails in my Sprint mail account. It's just getting impossible to answer everything. So if you do not hear a reply back from me, now you know, granted, a lot of emails are saying, hey, I like the way you do things. Love to hear those kind. Also know there's a lot of technical stuff that's being emailed to me, and people wanting repairs. You know, I'm one person, I can't do but just so much. The public job comes first. That's where the big money's at. A lot of the stuff I do out here, I'm not making a whole lot of money off of to start with. Hope you enjoyed the little fix. I just wanted to show that. Again, I wasn't even going to do a video on this. Decided that, well, I didn't do a good video in a couple of weeks now. But we got a lot of nice repairs coming up, so stay tuned and just, you know, stick with me, and we'll get it, you know, get it done. So again, you know, a lot of videos coming up that we'll be walking through. You know, I ask you just stick with me, be patient. I'll get to it when I can, and you know, try to keep some content uploaded as quick as possible. I don't want to leave anyone hanging. Me and Mike was talking the other day, and last weekend we noticed that none of us uploaded any videos in the group that we normally all watch each other videos. So, you know, it's kind of a slow weekend last weekend. The bad thing was I had plenty to do here in the shop, and the wife has been after me now for a couple of months to remodel the kitchen, so looks like I'll be spending the next couple of weeks working on that also. That's going to be a chore. Anyway, until next time, stay tuned, have a good week, and we'll see you then.